Thanks, guys. It's so good to be with you all. And I genuinely cannot wait to see your faces, hopefully soon, because it's taken too long now. And I do apologize. Chris will probably walk in any minute because it's his bedtime and he's just used to saying goodnight to each and every person in the family. So he'll walk in to say goodnight. I apologize for the disruption. How is everyone? I hope you guys are okay. Surviving lockdown. I know some people are working from home, some people are not. So I hope you guys are all good. So tonight, just like Tim was explaining, we're going to talk about zeal. And when you guys gave me this topic, I actually needed to Google it. I was like, oh, like I get, and you explained it really well. I think we're all stuck in lockdown at the moment. And I think we're all like, yeah, I don't so much. I have all these goals set for me, but I just lack motivation. There's no spirit of motivation left in me anymore. So I will kind of discuss it with you guys. I have a PowerPoint. If I share screen, will you? Oh, it allows me. Perfect. Thanks, guys. Okay. Can you guys all see this? Yep. Okay. Beautiful. Oops. 1 second. All right. What I will do, I might just leave it like this because I might need my notes to refer to it. Are you guys okay? You can still see it, right? All good? Okay, awesome. All right, so for those that do know me, and I think I know everyone online right now, so it's good, I might pick on some people, but everyone online probably knows that I do a lot of talking for work, and I hate talking to people after work. I come home, I'm like, I'm not doing any more talking. So today I do really want to have a discussion with you all, and I think this is a good topic to discuss with everyone. So the topic basically is when I Googled zeal, it said when you have great energy or enthusiasm in pursuit of something, okay? And I think we're all in pursuit of something. And especially right now, we're all, we're like, I can't wait to get out of lockdown so that I can pursue this. Whether it's I pursue a new career, whether it's I pursue going to church and having more services, whether it's I pursue having, just time with more friends, time with family, all of that. So what we're going to talk about today, I know that you guys have already had 2 speakers who were wonderful speakers. I listened into some of it, who talked about fear. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to introduce 2 types of fear. So there's the fear of the world and everything that is in the world. And then there's the fear of God. And I think if we pursue the fear of God more than we pursue the fear that we get out of the world, then we're a lot more zealous in what we do, okay? So I've titled it Fear Not, but Fear God, okay? And I'll run you through what I want to do today. So we'll talk about a little bit about what it means to fear God, and then we'll talk about some pointers on how to do that. And then I've chosen 2 Bible characters that I want to have a discussion with everyone about how they feared God and not the world. Okay. Now, if anyone has any questions or comments, please just call out. I can't see all of you on the little sidebar, so just call out and let me know. Okay. All right. So we'll get started. I don't really want to make it full screen because I need to see a little bit of my notes. Sorry, guys. Okay. And whoever did, I have to say, I don't know who does the little like the little pictures about the topics, but they chose Pope Crollis, and I absolutely love, he's my patron saint, so I love that. So thanks and hats off to that person. And I went ahead and I found a little quote by Pope Crollis about fear, and this one was one of my favorite ones. So he says, "Nothing will happen to you other than what God wills. So fear not, you are in his hand." So anything that happens to us in this world, it's because God has allowed it. And I think, especially right now, a lot of people are questioning things like, is this lockdown even useful? Should we be doing the vaccine? Should I not? And I'm not going to get into any of those discussions today, but I think if you think about it using this quote, that whatever it is that is happening comes back to God's will. So then why is it that I fear anything? Okay. And this one actually, when I was looking at it, reminded me of something. And I'm going to put it to you guys. What's the first thing that Christ said when he rose from the dead? Does anyone know? Like the first thing that he said to the disciples and the Marys. Any ideas?
Fear not.
He literally said to them, do not fear. Which is interesting, because if there's ever a time for you to be scared or fear something, it's probably then, when you're seeing someone rise from the dead. Thank God that doesn't happen these days, but at that time they were probably they were thinking, maybe we're hallucinating, maybe this isn't real. But the first thing that he says to them is, do not fear. And if he can say that in that moment, put yourself in any other moment and think about, okay, hold on, why is it that I have so much fear? And what is God trying to tell me? And he's most likely telling you, it's okay, I'm right here, do not fear. And then I might can I pick on someone? Sorry. Actually, I'll pick on people. Sylvia, can you do me a favor? She's sitting in the next room. Can you open up 2 Timothy 1:7 and just read it out for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sorry, just a sec. I'll get it up.
Take your time. All good.
What was it?
Right here, 2 Timothy 1:7.
My bad.
No, take your time. It's all good. I didn't want to put it on there for the purpose of picking on someone.
Well, you picked on the person you'll always pick on anyway.
Yeah,
change it up next time. Yeah.
No worries.
All right. No, it's all right. So I've got it up.
Yep.
So, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind.
Thank you. And this is that one verse that I want to keep in the back of your minds. If you get anything out of today, it's that God didn't give us a spirit of fear at all. In fact, he gave us a spirit of a sound mind and of love, and for us to go out there and make the right decisions and to love everyone while we're doing it. So keep that at the back of your mind for this whole talk. Okay, so, and I know everyone's heard this one before. God has said, do not fear 365 times, one for each day of the year. But then I thought I'd give you guys some of them. So there's 2 lists. There's the white one right here is the fear of God. And then, excuse me, the black one over here is the fear of the world. So he's telling us to not fear the things of the world. And I just put them up as examples, and I might read a few, because we know that he says do not fear, but sometimes we're like, but hold on, where is it? So in this one, God tells Abram, do not be afraid, Abram, I am your shield. And another one, he says, with the Lord on your side, I do not fear. What can mortals do to me? And this one actually we'll talk a little bit about. Does anyone know who said this one? It's an easy one in Psalms. With the Lord on my side, I do not fear. What can mortal men do to me?
King David.
Yes, thank you. Mon, hi, Mon. Thanks, Mon. Yes, King David. So that's one of the characters that we'll talk about today. And another one was Peter encouraging the Christians, and he says, do not fear what they fear and do not be intimidated. So do not fear what comes out of this world. Okay, what everyone else is fearing, you don't need to worry about. And there's another one, there is no fear in love, for perfect love casts out fear. And I think a lot of us have heard this one and love this verse. Now I've also put a couple here for the fear of the world. For fear of God, because this is what we need to aim for. We need to be able to fear God so that the rest of our fears are kind of gone. Okay, so I put some examples here as well, and I'll read them out loud. Fear God and keep his commandments, for that is the whole duty of everyone. Okay, and that's in Ecclesiastics. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. It's another favorite. Honor everyone, love the family of believers, and fear God. Okay, so these is where we want to aim for tonight. And then these will come automatically. The minute you start fearing God, and what God can do is the minute that everything else in the world kind of goes away. Tim, I love the dog. He's so cute. All right. Now, the good thing about doing this is on Zoom is you probably all have your phones handy right next to you, or a piece of pen and paper. And I did want to make this a little bit practical. So I want you guys to grab a piece of pen and paper or your phone. And I am sure that there is some sort of fear that we all kind of have at the back of our head. Whether it's hidden or not, I've put hidden there, but whether it's hidden or not, I just want you to write it down, because we're going to use that, and I want you to use that throughout the rest of tonight. I've already had mine, so I've written mine down, and it could literally be anything. There's so much about the fears that we have. I'll give you guys a minute to write it down, and then I want to tell you guys, I'm going to go to this one here. So while you guys are writing it down, I might just throw some ideas at you. So there's actually 4 types of fear that you could possibly have in your life, okay? There's the fear of loss. And this could be the fear of losing someone you love, but it could also be the fear of loss of a job, or the fear of loss of a friendship, or the fear of losing your image in front of someone. Okay, so there's a lot of losing things for that one. There's also a fear of failure. And I think maybe from like year 12 onwards, we all kind of feel this one, like, oh, I feel like a failure, I didn't get into this course, or I feel like a failure, what if I don't get into the uni I want? What if I don't get the job that I want? What if, I get to the job and then I fail at that job? What do I do then? So the fear of failure is one. Another one is fear of rejection. And I think this one we kind of all feel at one point of our life, whether it's fear of being rejected from a friend, being rejected again from a job, being rejected from, I don't know, a partner or someone that you were interested in, and then they reject you. There's always that fear of rejection. And then the fear of the unknown is another big one. So that's where you find yourself, oh, I'm asking a lot of what if questions. What if this is going to happen to me? What if, I get really, really sick and I can't continue this job? And sometimes they might sound like ridiculous fears, but people do have them. So has everyone written something down? It could be one, it could be a couple of different fears. We're good? Okay, awesome. All right, now, I want you to keep that one with you. I put this one in there because this was one of my fears before this talk. I don't know if a lot of people don't know this about me. I have in my head, it's very rational, fear of birds. I cannot stand birds. They will swoop and I will cry. I cannot handle them at all. And don't ask me why. It's just, I hate them. I don't know what it is.
It's funny you say that because Nathan was telling me the other day he got swooped by a magpie. So there you go. I think it runs in the family.
Probably. Oh, the poor kid. Now I feel for him. And I think, I don't know about you guys, maybe you have one of those in your head it's very rational. But if you tell it to someone else, they're like, are you okay? Like, what's wrong with you? I don't know if you guys know this or whether it was mentioned before. Does anyone know what are the 2 types of fears that we're born with as babies? Does anyone know? There's 2 things.
Was it fear of sorry, go.
No, it's okay, you go.
No, you can go. It's fine. I've spoken enough.
Okay, there's 2 that I thought of. Does maybe you guys have different ones?
I heard it was fear of falling and fear of loud noises.
That's exactly it. Yeah, perfect. Well done. So we're all kind of born with this innate fear of loud noises and fear of falling. So whenever a kid or a little baby hears loud noises, they start crying. Or a little baby, whenever they feel like they fall, they start crying. Like that's a fear of it. Anything else? after that is something that we have just learned to fear. Okay? Anything else is what the world has taught us to fear, or what our experiences have taught us to fear. Okay? So fear of heights might be something that people are scared of. There is a lot of people that are scared of fear of thunderstorms, fear of the dark, fear of not having the closet door closed. And I remember as a kid, like I can't, like fear of having one limb at the bed is scary because something's going to grab me and I'm, you know, that's it. So all of those are fears that we in our head have somehow just exaggerated and have taught ourselves to fear it. Okay. Now, if I ask you guys, what is fear? Like, what does that even mean? Does anyone want to give it what they think fear means? Or how could I fear something? What does it make? Okay, let me ask it in a different way. What does it make me feel if I fear something? What do I fear? Okay, I've got some false evidence appearing real. Yes, that's very true. Yeah, thanks, Christine. And that's what we do in our head. We make it very real. And I've heard the whole quote of, you know, if you have fear, then you don't really have enough faith. And I want to scratch that. No, that's not true at all. And I think everyone here will agree with me. If you disagree, please speak up. But fear does not equal not having faith. In fact, fear just means that I have faith in the wrong things. Okay, I believe the wrong things. And I'm going to say something to you guys about what it really means. Let me find it. Okay, so this is fear. So what you fear reveals what you value the most. So let's say I fear not getting into a job. Okay, that reveals what I value the most. I value having a stable job and being able to provide for a family, or, you know, working hard, and I'm determined to do something. So what you fear the most, so whatever you've written down in that piece of paper, if you look at it, it's what you value the most. Okay, if your fear is not getting into the kingdom of heaven, then that is what you value in your life the most. Okay, but there's always that little but. It also shows where you trust God the least. Okay, so taking that example of, you know, if I fear not getting into the job that I want, and that shows that I value having consistency in my life, it also means that I'm telling God, I don't trust you in this particular part of my life. Okay, because my fear is a lot more than what I know you can do for me in this area. And so the sentence that you guys would, or the thing that you've written on your piece of paper, is saying, God, I'm not trusting you with because I fear it. Okay. And it could be anything. It could be, you know, I'm never going to find a husband. And what if I do find a husband, but then, you know, we fall out of love? What happens then? And what if I can't have babies? And what if, and then the list just keeps going on. And that's where there's millions of what ifs. Okay. What if, you know, I can have kids, but I can only, you know, I have one. And then there are people that are like, wait, hold on, we can have kids, but we've got 6. Like, what am I going to do with 6 babies? And there's always that thought that just keeps going around and around in your head. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, let me have a look. Oh, this I thought was pretty cool. I'm going to quickly share it with you guys. There was a study conducted, and there was about 500 different people in the study, and they came out with 7,000 different fears. So not the same. So let's say Mon here, and Mon Yusuf is on here as well. So I'm going to pick on you, Mon. Our fears were not the same. They're completely different. So 7,000 different fears. That's an average of 14 per person. So if you've written 14 on your piece of paper, you're just average. Okay, you're fine, because that's what everyone else around you is probably thinking. And we've already discussed the 2 fears that we go through. Okay, so now we've gotten to the point of understanding what fear is. And for anyone that's just joined us, what we're going to do now is change it up. So how can I then have that great enthusiasm to fear God more than the rest of my fears? Okay. And I've put down, I like acronyms. I love acronyms because they help me. And I put down 4 P's. Okay. That will help you pick up that zeal. Okay. So pick up that great energy where you want to pursue the fear of God and reject the fear of the world. Okay. So the first one, and we'll go through them one by one, is positive thinking. And you would have heard this a lot around, church and, psych people. Positive thinking is, for some people, very natural. Okay. You will tell them anything and they'll go, oh yeah, but that means this. Like, we're in lockdown. Oh yeah, but that means I have plenty of time to do this and this and this. Or yeah, that's great because now I get to relax at home and not do anything. And then just by nature, very positive people. Okay. And then there's the complete opposite. There are people who are just by nature also a little bit negative. Okay. You tell them something good and they're like, oh, but hold on, that would mean this. And neither or, I'm not saying like one is better than the other. No, I'm just trying to explain that, some people by nature are just positive. Some people by nature are a little bit negative. What we need to be doing is practicing positive thinking. Okay. And I was trying to find an example for this one. And the one that I came up with, a lot of people, once they finish like HSE, and some people, because this was a bit tricky in our family as well, get offered like uni places, but outside of Sydney. And, a lot of people start worrying because they're like, oh, wait, hold on. I need to find a place. I need to be able to cook for myself. I need to be able to clean for myself. How am I going to meet anyone if I'm outside of Sydney? Like, I'm not going to meet anyone. How am I going to have friends? What if I can't study? And there's all these different fears. And we're asking ourselves, what if, what if, what if? Okay. Now, for us to change that, we need to practice positive thinking. We need to change and replace all of those thoughts into, hold on, but that also means that I have time to learn how to cook and clean. And I have time to, if I don't want to cook, go grab Macca's because no one's telling me no at this point. And I have time to make close friendships, not necessarily a lot of people, but close friendships. And I have time to sit there and smash my studies and get everything done. All right, so we're trying to learn to change the way we're thinking. And I was listening to a psych talk actually, and he said, your brain is always looking for evidence to confirm what you tell it. So if I tell my brain about negative thoughts, it will look at any scenario to like cherry pick the negative things that happened in your day to prove that your life is terrible. Okay. But if I tell my brain that my life is great, or that I don't need to fear this fear, or that, God is looking out for me and holding my hand in every step of the way, then that your brain's going to do that. It's going to cherry pick all the right pieces that happened in your day to prove what you've already told your brain. So if we get into that mindset of, I need to, find all the little things that will help me look for the positive in my life. Okay, so that was the first one, positive thinking. Am I making sense or have I confused anyone? Please tell me if I've confused anyone. We're good? Okay. The next one is putting our trust in God. And that's an easy one. The minute we put our trust in God, the rest of it goes away. Yeah. And I found a little story about this one. I don't know who the priest was, but it was a priest telling a story about when he got ordained to become an abuna, and he just bought like a house, and there was all these financial burdens on him, and he didn't know when he was going to get paid or when he was going to get any money, because everything's gone, his job's gone, he's now an abuna. Like, he didn't know what was going to happen next, but he trusted God. And I think the story was something like, one day someone just hands him an envelope with the exact amount that he needed that day. And I love that story so much, because it's beautiful. Christine said it's Father Daniel Fenus, and that's it. That's the one. Thank you. And so he trusted God enough to just let it be. Okay. And if we can get to that level, that's beautiful, because it's so hard, especially knowing that I owe something to someone and I don't know how to pay them, gets to your head. Yeah. But if I can just leave it, and you pray about it, and you seek God, and you tell him, look, God, I'm leaving this one in your hands. Okay. Eventually God just gives it to you. He's like, all right, you trust me, here you go. I'll just give it to you. And that's exactly what happened with Abuna Fenus. So thank you, Christine. All right. And the next one, the path of least resistance. Now, this one's a little bit probably confusing for people, but I need you to find the path of least resistance. So if I know, for example, lockdown has not been helpful in terms of a diet, okay? It's just ruined everything. So let's say, for example, I'm not eating healthy, but it's because I eat the junk that I find in my cupboard. So an example would be, instead of having the junk, so for example, I like apples. Instead of having the apples locked up in the fridge where I can't see it, you need to help yourself, okay? So what you do is you bring out the apples, and now they're on the counter, and now you're more likely to eat them. And it's the same thing with, if I'm trying to be a positive person, how can I pick the path of least resistance, where I'm not going to have, or I forgot about doing this, or I forgot that the fear creeps at me in the middle of the night. How can I take that away? Do I need to listen to a hymn? Do I need to meditate a little bit more? Do I need to go pray another psalm? Like, what is it that you need to do to help yourself? Okay. To just make it a little bit easier on yourself. Yeah. Okay. And then the last one is practice change and reject the fear. And I know that it's really hard to say we're never going to have fears in our lives, or we're never going to question the what if questions. That's not true. It will happen, but we need to practice changing that thought and rejecting it completely, and then finding how I can move on with it. Okay. And I was listening to another sermon, and they said, we as Christians should know what change really is, because change is hard. If I have to change jobs, or if I have to change, move to another place to find a job, or if I have to change, careers or something in the middle of my life, it's hard. It's not something easy. But he was saying, I think it was Abuna Anthony, he was saying, as Christians, change should really be very easy for us, because we see it every day at church. Okay, every single one of our sacraments contains something about change. So whether it's communion, it changes. Okay, you take bread and you take wine, and it suddenly becomes the body and blood of Christ. You take water for baptism, and it becomes the holy water where we receive, and the maroon, and we receive the Holy Spirit. And you come out a changed person. You go in to confession different, and you come out a changed person. So every single one of them, marriage, you walk in as one person, or two people, sorry, and you walk out as one person. So it's all lots of different changes that we see around ourselves. So if we can practice that change is not necessarily something to be afraid of, and reject the fear itself. Okay, so those are our 4 points. If you guys can remember them, 4 Ps: positive thinking, put your trust in God, choose the path of least resistance, and practice change and reject the fear. All right, so now I'm going to go through 2 Bible characters that I thought, I've given it away, but for Moses, can anyone tell me how Moses rejected fear? Maybe you guys have different ideas than I do. So let's see if anyone else has anything else to tell. How did Moses reject fear? Yeah, any ideas? There's a couple of things with Moses. He's a very big character.
You may need to pick on someone.
Do I? I don't want to pick on people right now. It's okay. That's fine. All good. If anyone comes up with something different than what I've chosen, then please speak up and tell us. I love Moses. I especially love him because he's a character in the Bible that stutters. And I do speech as a job. So he's very interesting to me. And often whenever I see a stutterer, I'm like, I understand how Moses would have felt. And okay, so sorry, just got distracted. Moses put his trust in God in different areas, and I'm going to go through a couple of them. So the first one was the minute he left Pharaoh's place. Okay, Moses was in a very prestigious place. Okay, and he could have had whatever he wanted. All right, so he could have stayed there with Pharaoh's daughter, lived his life, done whatever he wanted to do. He would have had security around him, very luxurious life. Okay, but instead he chose to follow the unknown and be stuck in the middle of a desert with absolutely no security. Okay, and not knowing what tomorrow was going to bring. With a bunch of people that weren't always happy with the situation. But he put his trust in God. And there's one verse that Moses says to God, and he goes to God. So I'll read it out. It's in Exodus 4:1. Moses answered, "What if they do not believe me or listen to me and say the Lord did not appear to you?" Okay, and that's a very big fear. Who's this man coming to tell us that God spoke to him? Like, who are you? And often we think the same way. What will someone else think about me if I speak about Christ? Or, what if my image is tainted if I do this? Or what will people think if I change careers in the middle of my life? And there's all these fears that go around. But Moses was really interesting. So he says that to God. And he does, and God comforts him. And he says, it's okay, I will be with you. Just go and tell them. And I really like him because there's another verse in Hebrews where it says, he refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter, choosing rather to suffer affliction with the people of God, and esteeming the reproach of Christ greater riches than the treasures in earth. And this is what we mean about zeal, okay? He realized that his purpose wasn't in Pharaoh's palace. His purpose was elsewhere. And he had that zeal to go out and follow Christ. The other part that I really like about Moses, because he's a stutterer, he was saying to the Lord, he said, I can't speak, I can't do it. And often people that stutter will say, or they will revert to not speaking because it's just too embarrassing. And the Lord gives him the encouragement. God says to him in Exodus 4, he goes, "Now therefore go, and I will be your mouth and teach you what to say. Take this rod in your hand in which you shall do the signs." And I love this because even the greatest prophets in our Bible needed that encouragement from God. But that encouragement is what God gives us every day. He gives that to us every day in our life, especially when he says, do not fear. But, even Moses needed that encouragement. So if you need that encouragement too, open up your Bible and find something that rekindles that zeal for you. All right. There's another part in Moses's life that I think really showed his zeal as well. You guys obviously remember the time where Moses was speaking to God on the mountain, and then he comes down and they've made this idol for themselves. And Moses comes down, and this is really, I like this one because Moses, I wouldn't say is an angry person, but he got really angry at them then. And the interesting thing is, right before he was talking to God on the mountain, and he says to God, Lord, why shall your wrath burn hot against your people? Yet now, if you will forgive their sins, if not, I pray, blot me out of the book which you have written. This is huge. So he's like, if you're not going to take away your wrath from them, then I'm also with them. Blot me out of the book. And I love it because it just shows really great relationship that he had with God to even tell him, if you're not going to do this, then take me, forget about me. And that's very zealous of him. I don't know what you guys think, but that's huge. And it's interesting because then God answers him and he says to him, now therefore let me alone, so that my wrath may burn hot against them and I may consume them. And he keeps going, but then eventually he convinces God to leave them. And, when anyone asks us, who do you think wrestled with God? What's our answer? Well, not who do you think, who wrestled with God?
Jacob.
Jacob, very good. So Jacob wrestled with God. However, so did Moses, not so much physically, but with what he said to him. He wrestled. He's like, if you're not going to forgive them, forget about me. I'm out too. And then what Moses does is exactly what I would imagine God would have done if he came down and been really upset as well. He goes down to them and he breaks the 2 tablets with the commandments. And I heard a nice contemplation about it. It was saying, it's because he saw that the commandments were no longer being followed. So he just broke them. They were worshipping something that, wasn't in the commandments. But I just love that part because it really showed how zealous Moses was in his relationship with God and in making sure that, all the Israelites came with him and that God wouldn't be so angry with them. But I like the part, so I don't know who said it, but yes, Jacob wrestled with God, but the fact that God said to Moses, just leave me be, leave me alone, like you're just fighting for too much, leave me, also just shows how strong he was wrestling with him with words. Okay, so that's Moses. But when I was reading Moses' life, there was another little part that I found really interesting. The Israelites themselves, okay, they had a lot of fears. What were their fears? Can you throw any at me? What did they fear?
They'll run out of food in the
Yep,
the
running out of
wilderness.
food. Yep, never making it to the promised land. We're out here in the wilderness, we have nothing, all of these different fears. And they were very logical fears. Yeah, they were fears of we might die, there's no food, there's no water, there's no shelter. We could, we've been wandering for years and years and still nothing. But it wasn't until they saw God's power that they started to fear God more than they feared everything else in the world, okay? it wasn't until they saw that God can provide them with food, and he will provide them with water, and he will get them to the promised land, that they started to fear him. Of course, they made their mistakes along the way, but realizing how much power God holds in our lives will take away the fear of everything else. And the two big examples that I thought of was when God broke the Red Sea. They saw his power there. And then they really, when they were really, really hungry and God provided them with the manna, they understood the verse of one does not live by bread alone, but by every word of the mouth of God. And they understood that. So I thought they were really interesting, worth mentioning as well. Okay, so that's Moses. Does anyone want to add anything else to Moses? Okay. There's another Bible character that I thought was really interesting too, and that is King David. And he was also a very zealous person. In fact, I think he was very zealous from a very young age, from his youth. So the common story that we hear about David is David and Goliath. And David was actually a young youth. So he was very young at the time where he fought Goliath. And no one would have rebuked him if he didn't. Okay, so imagine this young boy coming up and saying, I'm going to fight Goliath. No one would have said, hey, why didn't you do something? Because he wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a man of the army. He was too young. No one would have said anything. But he had that zeal in him from that young age that he knew. So he knew he had to do something. He knew his place. And even when his own brother was like, are you serious? Like, what are you going to do? And then when he went to the king and said, I want to fight him, he said, no, you're a youth. Why are you going to go fight him? And everyone was telling him no. Everyone was saying, why would you do it? But David just knew that this was his calling. And I think we know what we need to do, and we know what we need to stop fearing. And whatever you've written on that piece of paper, we know that there's no reason to fear it. But we don't have that little zeal in us for us to go and just do it. So that was something that I liked about King David. But the main point that I wanted to talk to you guys about King David was this. So King David was then going to be appointed to be king, but obviously King Saul was there. Now I want you guys to put yourselves in the shoes of King David. We don't have a king at the moment, but let's say the president, the prime minister, who knows, comes out and he's like, I need Tim brought to me, whether he's dead or alive. Okay? Or I need Christine brought to me, whether she's dead or alive. All right? That's a fear. Okay? Like, that's, if there's ever a time to be scared, it's that, when the entire nation is after you. Okay? And you have to run, like you have to run for your life. And if anyone sees you or reports you, you're gone. You're dead. But it's interesting because this is where King David writes some really interesting psalms. And this one is one of my favorite ones. So he says, my slanders pursue me all day long. Many are attacking me in their pride. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. In God, whose word I praise. In God I trust. I will not be afraid. What can mortal man do to me? So this is the one that Mon told us about at the start. And I highlighted this one here. It says, when I am afraid. And he would have felt afraid. But he combated that with, I will trust in you. I will not be afraid. What can man do to me? And I'm not saying that, we're never going to fear anything in our lives. We will. And there will be things that might seem like they're too hard. or they're too much for us. But what can men do to us if we have God on our side? And then something interesting happens in David's story. So he had the chance to kill Saul a couple of times, but he never took that chance. And he left it to God, you know. He didn't overcome revenge. He didn't go into this, I have to, you know, for my own safety, I need to kill him. No, it was, God, I'm leaving this in your hands. You deal with it. I'm not going to even the score here. This is also your appointed one. And he left it to God. And it got to the point where even Saul was shocked. Saul was like, wait, hold on. You had the chance to kill me and you didn't? Like, are you okay? But it goes on to say, you know, then Saul said to David, blessed be thou, my son David. Thou shalt both do great things and also shall still prevail. So David went on his way and Saul returned to his place. However, so Saul basically says, you know, David, you're good. I'm going to let you go. You're fine. And that God will prevail. Everything's okay. But literally in the next verse, it says, and David said in his heart, I shall now perish one day by the hand of Saul. And he was still scared. But the minute he was scared was when he trusted God the most. Okay. And I think we sometimes find ourselves, you know, doubting what's going to happen if I don't do so, or if I fear this, but I'm not going to do anything about it. Like, what's the outcome of the situation? And even after we hear, you know, all these great verses, we still have a hard time letting go. And this is what I meant about, well, then you need to find something to pick up your zeal. So whether it means I need to hold myself accountable and call a friend or call a buna, or, you know, pick up my Bible again and read something else. What is it that's going to help me, you know, pick up myself? So that's also David. Now, just to finish up with this one, there was a really cool story. I don't know if anyone here knows Beth Moore. Yeah, she's not too famous here, but she's pretty famous up in America. And she just writes a lot of Christian books and things, not too much, but she's got a couple of books. And there's this one particular story that I remember hearing about her. And for some reason, she had in her head that if anything happened to her husband, she would just, you know, fall down and die. That's it. Like, if he's gone, what in the world am I going to do? And she was talking in an interview once, and she said, I kind of felt God saying, all right, so what if he dies? What are you going to do then? And she kind of just had that dialogue with God. All right, so what if he dies? And she goes, okay, well, if he dies, you know, I'm going to be so upset. I'm going to be really, you know, down. But I'm sure I'll pick myself up and I'll go to the funeral. And then she felt God going along with the story. He's like, all right, so then what if? And then she's like, okay, well then, you know, I'll be really, really upset for the next couple of months and I wouldn't want to get out of bed and it'll just be a bad time. And then she felt God going, okay, and then what if? Like, what happens next? Then what? And she's like, well, I'm sure after a couple of months or who knows how long, I'm going to seek you again. And you'll pull me out because I have faith that you will pull me out. And he's like, that's exactly it. Like, no matter what situation is going to happen in your life, God's going to pull you out. Like we are his kids and he cares for us just like his kids. And even when he seems distant, if you call on him, he comes back to you. And sometimes we just have to play that what if game with God. Just sit there and go, all right, so if this happens, then what? What if you don't get that job? What if someone rejects you? What if you get married and you have 6 kids? Like, what if? What are you going to do then? And you always find that the answer goes back down to God's still there. God still has you by his hand. And God's always going to be faithful to us. So if we need to play that what if game, go for it. And I'm going to end it up with a verse because I feel like I still talked a lot today. With the verse that we started off with. So 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And if we choose to be zealous in what we do, he will always be there for us and we will always find our way back to God. Thanks, guys. Does anyone have any questions or queries? I'm going to stop sharing.
Mons, I had a question if you don't mind. Firstly, that was beautiful. Thank you so much. It was really well structured. I found that very powerful.
Love you.
Love you. I think, like, would you say that the difference between the fear of God and the fear of the world is that basis of love that's there? Like, we fear God out of our love for him, whereas the fear in the world is like out of like negative stuff. Does that make sense? Is that the difference?
Yep. Definitely. I think I might even leave it to Abuna if Abuna wants to jump in. Okay. I think, we always play that what if game, but it's never a what if something good happens. We go, and I think the only time someone goes what if is if, and it's probably none of us, what if I win the lottery tomorrow? Like, that's the only what if that's good that's going to come out. All of our what ifs and all of our fears tend to be very negative fears. And I definitely agree with you. I think because we fear the world and we're telling God, I value this part of the world. I value, having a good career. I value having a partner. I value my service, but I fear that I won't get a good partner, or I fear that my service will never be enough, or I fear, and it's always negative. But the minute you go, hold on, God is sitting up there on his throne. What could go wrong with my service? Or what could go wrong if I don't find a partner in the next 5-10 years? Or what could go wrong if the job that I really dreamed of, I never get? And that's where you start replacing all those negative ones into very positive thoughts. But you're right. I think the fear of God is out of love. Does that answer your question?
100%. Thanks, Mom. Thank you.
I think also, just on that, I think also the fear of God also entails reverence. I think reverence is like, fear is usually like like you were just saying, fear is like a negative thing, but reverence of God is like is a positive thing. It's not as though the fear of God is, I have the fear of God because he's going to send me to hell. I think it's more that reverence. I respect God and I love God to the extent that I want to do what's pleasing to him. It's not that because he has the power to destroy me or send me to hell. I think that's more like the negative fear. But I think the fear of God is that positive, that reverence, that understanding and the respect of the commands of God, and understanding that I'm his child, I'm made in his image and likeness, etc.
Yeah.
It's the fear of separation from God, which is sin. That's the fear of God. And that was beautiful. Well done. I enjoyed it.
Thanks for having me.
Always. Any other questions?
Thank you, Monica.
Found hard questions for Monica.
Okay.
I always say that fear is also always a result of looking at the past, looking at today, without the perspective of tomorrow. That fear is the result of that.
I like that.
I just went on mute. Someone muted me. Any other questions? Christian, you can stop.